All right, y'all. So it's been 30 years since the original Coming to America aired. The sequel just came out. I just watched it. Y'all want to hear my review, my rating, and see if it was percolating? Let's get into it. So I don't care where you go in this world, I would be shocked if you could find somebody, probably a few people, but not a lot of people who don't know Coming to America, who don't know it, who don't love it, who can't quote almost every line from it, and who doesn't think that it's one of the funniest movies of all time, right? It's a legacy. It was one of those movies that was lightning in a bottle. It happened in the 80s. It happened with an almost all black cast. And it happened at a time where Eddie Murphy was emerging. Well, he had already emerged, but he was at that point of, king of the box office, king of comedy, all of those things, right? It was Eddie Murphy, Arsenio Hall, John Amos as well. So many people, right? So many people in this movie that made it such a classic. The scenes, the African dancing in the beginning, your queen to be, the old men in the barbershop, Eddie Murphy playing all of these roles and making this really a classic movie. So when it came time to reboot this or remake this, which they just did, I saw that it was on there last night. You guys know I've been watching and waiting for it to come out. But I saw that they dropped it last night, and I waited to do my review until now because I wanted it to get, I wanted people to watch it, see how they felt about it. I haven't read any reviews, but I've heard kind of like a general feel about what people have thought about it. I know not everyone wanted a review. I'm always on the side of, wanted a sequel, but I'm always on the side of liking one doesn't erase the other. And if this movie was so big that there's no way that any sequel, whatever the story may be, could compare to the original, right? But I kind of wanted to see where Hakeem is, what he's doing. And so when they approached Eddie Murphy about the sequel for years and years and years, they've been talking about it. But Eddie was always like, I can't do a sequel unless it makes sense, right? So there's no need to do a sequel if there isn't a story there. We don't want to rehash some of the same things. And so after 30 years, he agreed to do it, and so he brought back basically everybody from the cast, and also he brought back every character that he's played as well from the cast. And so you do have, the three old men from the barbershop. You do have Randy Watson. You have a couple of new characters as well, played by Arsenio Hall. Arsenio brought back the preacher as well. So they tried their best to infuse the original into this remake. So all of that said, because I gotta start with that. All that said, it was tough to watch. You guys, I gotta be honest with you. I'm always honest. I give it to you straight with no chaser, and it was difficult to watch. Now, I did fall asleep. Now, I will say that I fell asleep towards the end. I was good for the first hour and so. But for the last maybe 30 minutes, I took a snooze cruise, and I woke up and the credits were rolling. Now, I did go back, I slid it on back where I fell asleep, back where I remember falling asleep, and I did that, and I started it again. And so then I finished that last part. It was tough to watch, like I said. I love to see everybody back. We love when people get a check. We love when people bring stuff back so everybody eats, right? Everybody gets a check. But it just wasn't funny. It wasn't funny. And I'm not comparing it. Look, I'm not comparing it, like I said, to the original because that was lightning in a bottle. You cannot recreate that. Nobody can recreate that moment. However, I felt like the story was okay. He had a son that he didn't know he had back in New York, so he went back to get him and to bring him back to Zamunda to become, the prince. So that part was okay. They could have written on that a little bit better, but the jokes behind it, a lot of the old jokes were rehashed. The addition of Leslie Jones and like Lunel and Wesley Snipes, and I think that was okay. For me, for the most part, that was kind of a little bit of the highlight because it was like fresh blood, and they brought a little bit more pizzazz to it, a different flair to it. But you could just kind of tell like They didn't have the budget for it, even though, Ruth Carter, who just won an Oscar for, costume design. We love her. She's done a million things. She worked with what she had with the budget. I think the budget was like $30 million or so, which is small compared to the first one, but also just in general, right? So they didn't have that much to work on, but all in all, it didn't hit the mark. There were a couple of funny moments, that I kind of chuckled on, but for the most part, I was like, shit, this is not funny. This is not humorous. This is not, this. I can't say that it wasn't sequel worthy, because I still wanted to see like an update of where everybody was. And like I said, I don't think this will erase or tarnish the franchise. You guys just think of it that way when you watch it. Think of it as like a completely separate movie, right? Don't think of it as so much a number two. Just think of it as like an update, right? When you update your phone tells you need to update something, and you update the app, or you update, it changes things, right? It just adds a little bit here and there, but the base of whatever you update is already there. So that's what I would think about going into it. If I was going to give it a rating, I give my ratings between A, B, C, and D. I would give this, I would give it a C minus. I kind of want to give it a D plus, but I give it a little bit more than that, just because of, I guess, how attached I am, the nostalgia of it all, how attached I am to the original. If this was a movie like the very first one and nothing else had come out before it, I would have given it an F probably. I would have probably given it an F. I'm just being honest. I would have given it a fail, a flag, a flunky, a fuck. I would have given it an F. But the fact that it is attached to that, I'm going to go ahead and give it a C minus, D plus, in between there. And that's just me being honest. So I think that's really all I wanted to say. I don't want to spoil the movie for you guys. I definitely want you to see it. If you've seen it, let me know in the comments. Let me know how you felt about it. Did you feel it was necessary? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Have you seen it yet? Again, it just, to me, it was okay that they made the sequel. I wasn't mad at that. However, there were just some very cringeworthy moments in it that I was like, they don't need to be doing this. But I'm glad they did it, if that makes sense. I don't know if that makes sense to y'all, but to me, it makes sense. I'm okay with them making a sequel, but it wasn't something that I would watch again. It's only something I would recommend based on the love of the first one. And it is not something that I will purchase, from my collection. I love you, Eddie Murphy. I love you, Arsenio Hall. I love you, James Earl Jones. I love all of you who came back and did this. It was good to see these faces and these people and updated. So I'm okay with that. Now we know what happened to them 30 years later, and I don't need to see whatever happens again. So let me know in the comments if you guys seen it. What did you think? And I'll be back, of course. I'm going to watch something else, come back with another review. But I have to come in and call you guys and talk to you for a quick second and let you know my thoughts on Coming to America.